What is balance? Is this balanced? What about this? Does this right here look like balance? Not that kind of balance. Hello everyone, it's me, the Warhammer complaining guy, Revan/Handy, destroy our wallets, make our terrible financial decisions, back with another video that can hopefully earn your subscription. So in today's video, let's talk about the current balance state of Warhammer. But like any other game, balance is an integral part of a game's health and longevity, and Warhammer is no different. Some factions are just average, some trash, and some just straight up broken. Which is why when something is a problem, you smack it with the nerf bat early on so it doesn't fester for more than 6 months and cause issues for the health of the game. Fortunately, as someone who is terrible with money and has 3 different armies, I then have options for what I can play when something is either average or unfortunately garbage. Notice I didn't say when my army is overpowered because I have a background in Yu-Gi-Oh! And I know that playing against the deck that is raffle stomping everyone isn't very fun to play against. But a good indicator of the balanced state of an army, in my opinion, is around a 50% win rate, within a margin of error of 2 to 3%. So this means you should win about half your games depending on what army you're up against. If it's a top tier army and yours is bottom tier, may the God Emperor help your soul. But when it starts to go above a 50% win rate, it starts to get into the territory of maybe we need to tweak a few things so it doesn't become a problem for all the tournaments, and then we start to see nothing but the same army for months at a time. But nah, GW would never do that. So I feel like this is a good point to talk about how there should always be an anti-meta army, and this edition it was Custodians. So if you've never heard of the term anti-meta, I'm sure you're asking what it means, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's literally just something that's anti whatever the meta is. Using Custodians as the example, when they got fixed, they excelled at being the roadblock to most of the armies that shit out devastating wounds, which in turn meant that Custodians were the watchers of the gate. See what I did there? But yes, Custodians were literally the one giving the top armies their first real issue in months because they couldn't just cheese their way to victory anymore, because they had to deal with an army that was pretty tanky and liked to run up the board to punch in their faces. Are we sure the Custodians aren't just the golden orcs this edition? And if you were one of the lower win rate armies, I would kind of like to apologize for Custodians throwing your armies in the dumpster. But for a game to be healthy, there has to be a stat check for armies that are overperforming, and that unfortunately was Custodians. 9th edition was a good example of the illusion of balance up until I think it was the Tyranids Codex, which then had subsequent codexes balanced solely around beating Tyranids, so it then caused an issue of those armies then raffle stomping every other army that isn't Tyranids. Some of you will also remember that the state of balance toward the end of 9th edition was actually not that bad. Everyone was actually doing okay except for maybe Bad Mech and Deathwatch. This was because they gave us the meta I would like to call, when everyone is overpowered, nobody is. Which is why the last few months in 9th edition were actually some of the most fun games of Warhammer I've had in my 5 years of hobbying. Another good point someone left in my price increase video, which you should totally go watch, is that the Codex team does in fact have an A team and a B team. The A team is composed of all the senior Codex writers, which work on the armies that have recently gotten newer models they know will drive sales. Meanwhile, B team, which is the newer Codex writers, go ham with all the writing and playtesting, or lack thereof. All the while not getting any experience shadowing the senior Codex writers. So then the Codex written by the B team sucks, and then the A team goes in months later and either fixes the B team's f***ups with little to no changes, or they completely rewrite the rules, making the Codex an expensive paperweight. AdMech players, you once again have my condolences. It also doesn't help that 10th edition completely turned Warhammer on its head with all the changes they made to the core rules of the game, and they kind of continue to do so. But another thing that it seems GW no longer takes into account since they fired all the community playtesters in 9th edition is that we the players will always find the most broken combos possible within the first hours of any rules or codexes being shown to us. A more recent example of players finding a broken interaction that I'm sure not a lot of you know about is if you have an oval base, you can cheese more movement out of your models because a pivot now costs 2 inches of movement, and guess what? Some oval bases have a larger than 2-inch radius from the center, so guess what? You can cheese out more movement. So let's say for example you're using a model with a large oval base, and your opponent's minis are in an area you can't reach unless you rotate the base, and you have 3 inches of movement left. Just pay the pivot cost of 2 inches and move 1 more inch, and guess what? Now you can't possibly fail the charge. Some other broken interactions that players have found that I can think off the top of my head was the Dark Angel's Hellblaster Death Blob with 10 Hellblasters, Azrael, and an Apothecary, the turn 1 Custodian's Terminator from Golden Light Cheese, where you can turn 1 Golden Light if you were going second, The incredibly funny Venetari Gabagoo rapid ingress where you can run them up the board when it's your turn, a Custodi's hee hee haha very funny 10-man guard brick led by a blade wizard that did get nerfed for the first 10th edition balance data slate because it was really unfair but at the same time really fucking funny. Or what about deep striking a Necron monolith that led to a really hilarious tournament win against an Eldar player? Again, I don't need the Necrons to win, I just need the knife-eared bastards to lose. Now, I can't really think of any other funny interactions, but if you know any other hee hee haha very funny interactions for your armies in 10th edition, why don't you let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, why don't you like the video or subscribe, because any form of engagement really helps the channel. But like I mentioned before, usually the community playtesters were able to find these issues and pass them on to GW to fix, but I've noticed a lot more recently this edition that GW doesn't really even bother listening to player feedback until it becomes a problem. And even when they do try to address the problem, it sometimes doesn't really do anything. For example, when the Custodians lost the 4-out Feel No Pain defending against devastating and mortal wound spam, the win rate tanked really hard, and I mean really hard. And same with Imperial Knights losing the Bondsman abilities, which they still haven't fixed. So the win rate for Knights also tanked really hard, and the Knights tanking was honestly also a casualty of an indirect nerf because Eldar was literally wreaking havoc on the game for 6 months. We the players usually are also very conservative with our feedback so then our armies don't get nerfed into the ground, and usually the changes we suggest are fairly small. I think I mentioned in this video it'd be really cool if Knights could bust through the walls like the Kool-Aid Man, and now that's actually a thing. It makes me wonder if GW is probably watching my videos and that's why they don't like to send me free stuff because I constantly talk shit about them. It's also kind of annoying that Deathwing Knights finally got their goddamn maces fixed after GW saw that nobody wanted to buy them because the rules were also kind of shit on release, which is kind of stupid because Deathwing Knights always came at a premium for Dark Angels players compared to normal or Assault Terminators. Another thing is GW constantly throwing stuff into Legends because they say it's apparently too hard to balance, so they throw them into Legends anyway, and then they introduce new models which then break the game. Again, throwing stuff into Legends also pisses off players that literally have no other alternative to what got thrown into Legends. Do Relic Dreadnoughts sound familiar to anyone that plays Chaos? Because I'm sure everyone was so thrilled when their brand new plastic Leviathan, Contemptors, and Dorito Dreadnoughts were useless in 40k a few months later. Stuff getting thrown into Legends also pisses me off too, because all the time, money, and effort I sunk into these goddamn models is all for nothing because now they're just glorified shelf queens. And yes, I know the Warlord Titan is also a glorified shelf queen, but that's a subject for another video. And I can already hear a few of you saying that if you want to use your Legends models, then go play Horus Heresy. Motherfucker, I would if there was anyone around me that even plays Horus Heresy. Honestly, GW really needs to get their shit together when it comes to their illusion of balance, because even I'm getting tired of the constant shitification of the game, because why would I want to spend money on any codexes that are paperweights on release, or models that might get thrown into Legends 2 years later because it's apparently too hard for GW to balance something they introduced. So if the game isn't balanced, less people will play, which in turn means GW will also start to lose money due to their ever-increasing ludicrous prices. But if that happens, then I guess that means balance will once again be restored to our bank accounts. As always, thank you once again for watching this video. Don't forget, if you want to support the channel, simply leaving a comment and hitting the like and subscribe button helps more than you think, along with maybe joining my Discord server so I can see all of your cool miniatures. But becoming a channel member also helps too, since it allows me to make up bullshit excuses to my parents about why I totally need to complete my Imperial Knights Infinity Gauntlet. And as I say this, those motherfuckers at GW better not Legends my Imperial Knights or I'm gonna be very pissed. Anyways, I have to go make more terrible financial decisions, so I will see you all in the next video, and remember, being poor is a choice.